I don't think the monster inside us shows up as something obvious. It's not rage all the time. It's not violence. Most of the time, it's quieter than that. Shows up in thoughts that you don't say out loud, in reactions you justify a little too quickly to even admit that you just had that reaction. Moments where you surprise yourself and then immediately try to forget that it happened. I notice it when I replay arguments in my head and imagine better ways that I could have hurt someone, which is a very disturbing thought to have sometimes, but it does exist in all of us, but most of us don't admit it. When I reduce people to caricatures so I don't have to take them seriously, it makes it easier to deal with the situation, but I don't quite feel that's right. When I feel wronged and start collecting reasons why I'm entitled to be cruel, at least internally, I don't think that's the right way to go about it. None of that feels monstrous in the moment, but if you stop to think about it even for 1 second, it does. And the most unsettling part is that people don't do that. And to name a famous philosopher from the 20th century, perhaps, if I'm not remembering this incorrectly, then Carl Jung called this the shadow. The part of the personality that holds everything we don't want to identify with. Not just our flaws, but our capacity to lie, to manipulate, to rationalize harm while still seeing ourselves as decent people. And to me, that's the hardest part to sit with, when the monster is ignored. And what bothers me is how easily this part operates when it's not acknowledged. It doesn't announce itself. It hides behind explanations, behind sarcasm, behind when you've all heard people say, "That's just how I am. Deal with it." And the longer it stays unexamined, the more convincing it becomes. Losing control without noticing is not something that should happen to people. And I personally don't think that people suddenly become dangerous. I think they slowly hand over small decisions without realizing it to the worst part living inside them. They justify one reaction, then another, and another, and the cycle never stops. And at some point, they're acting in ways they would have judged harshly in someone else while still feeling morally intact. That's the version of the monster that actually worries me. And Jung had this idea that people lose the image of God. He described God as the image of God, because as Jung, I try not to get religious. And he said that people lose the image of God not because it disappears, but because they refuse to look low enough to encounter what actually the image of God means living within a person. It does not lie in belief, it does not lie in religion, it lies in themselves, in inadequacy, in guilt, in the parts of the psyche that feel weak, undeveloped, or embarrassing. And I think we avoid that descent because it's humiliating. I mean, of course it is. There's no way to avoid it. You have to face humiliation if you ever want to get away from it. Avoidance. It's easier to stay distracted. It's easier to keep yourself busy and convince yourself that you have an important task when you really don't. To stay convinced that your darker impulses are harmless or justified or temporary. But to be very frank, avoidance doesn't make the monster smaller, at least in my observation. It just makes it harder to see when it's already influencing you because it has control over you already and you cannot let it go because once you admit it, you are again in humiliation phase and people just don't want to admit that. But I'm starting to notice, and I'm saying this with little confidence because I talk about the problems I'm facing more than trying to be all preachy here, is that things only shift when I stop defending my self-image, when I admit where I'm inadequate, where I'm reactive, where I'm resentful, where I'm avoiding responsibility, when I admit it, when I realize what I'm doing wrong. that's when it helps. Not all at once, not flawlessly, mind you, but piece by piece. Because I've realized that when pride takes over, or when I'm afraid of what I might find if I look too closely at myself, the monster gets more room to operate. It starts finding ways to avoid the actual problem at hand. Quietly, convincingly, and sometimes without ever letting you know that it's the monster and not you. But when I start admitting what's actually lacking and start fixing it bit by bit instead of pretending it isn't there, I feel something inside me actually change for the positive. The monster will not disappear and doesn't disappear. It just stops sitting in the driver's seat. And that's what I want to let happen. And I'm very aware that I'm still somewhere in the middle of that. And I hope that somewhere you guys actually understand what I'm trying to say and try to deal with it.